to another episode of Deep Dishes. We're at our devotional piece right now, and we are going into part 2 with Will and Doris Crack, and we're talking about interracial marriage. Now, we're here at Perito Point Church, where Will pastors, and it's a dynamic ministry here in Dunwoody. And I talked about Numbers 12, and if you want to go and read that on the previous episode, I talked about Numbers 12 in the Old Testament and God's perspective on interracial marriage, because Moses married outside of his ethnic group. He married Zipporah, and I think she was a Midianite. I think. And Aaron and Miriam had something to say about it, and God was not pleased. So go and read that, Numbers 12, and it'll give you some insight on God's perspective on interracial marriage, interracial dating. But we're going to get to this next question that's really heavy on my heart. What negative encounters have you had as a couple in the public view?
Yeah. Well, sometimes, on the more not so serious level, we get a fair amount of looks and stares. And I remember recently at the gym, this guy just kept looking, but what was cool about him is he finally called me over. He was just as curious about the relationship, and we had a little conversation. But we have had some things that really went negative. One time I can recall that I ironically was going and doing a national presentation on race and ethnicity, and I lost my luggage. So I had to go to a major retailer to get some clothes and wear them for the conference. But then when I was done with the conference, I really didn't want to keep some of the stuff. Actually, the only thing I didn't want to keep was a tie. And so I asked Doris to go return the tie. She had the receipt. She was going to return it. She was pregnant at the time, and I think wearing sweats when she went in, but irrelevant. She went to return the tie with the receipt from the specific company, and the manager was asking her all these questions and saying, no, this needs to go to the rack. It's on discount. You can't get the return. Didn't give her the return. Now, here's what happened. She called me crying and emotional. And
you pregnant too?
And here's the thing. I'm coming from another diversity workshop just happened to be wearing all the clothes except the tie.
Wow.
And I'm driving past the mall when she calls. And so the minute I hear what's going on, I got off the freeway, went in the parking lot, went up the stairs into this major retailer, and I said, my wife is trying to return this tie, what's the problem? And within 30 seconds, I had that card credited back with apologies, just because it was me returning this. And we took it a step further, and we called the general manager down and explained what happened and said, is this how you do things? And so it was eye-opening. So that's one experience, and then I'll just tell one short one, real short, it's funny, we'll go into a mall. We went into another major retailer at a mall. I'm not saying the names, but it was so funny. We both went in, and this time it wasn't like we were dressed, both comfortably or whatever we were wearing, but they gave me all the attention. And they practically ignored Doris. And what I'm thinking is, you should be doing exactly the opposite, because I hate shopping. I don't want anything in here. I'm just here, and eventually I'm going to go out to the bench and sit down because she's going to keep. And I was just like, it's funny. And we've had other times where we would have dinner. One time we had dinner at a Mexican restaurant, and I got upset because they had plenty of seats in the middle, and they put us right back in the kitchen, and near the kitchen, and all the white folks were in the middle. So I went and talked to them about that. I said, why are we way back here in the corner?
Right.
There's plenty of seats. So things like that. But more often than not, it's just the looks and curiosity is what I'm getting now. Those things don't happen all the time.
Another question, and this is a tough one. I know it will be for me, is your kids experiencing. Because I know as you all may can get past it, it's tough. But to think about your kids experiencing, you know, bigotry or prejudice, and you may not be present and they come and tell you stories. Do you all have anything with your children?
Yes, our oldest son, there were two situations. One, he didn't really get discriminated against or anything, but I remember him coming home and he was crying. He was little, he was like 4 years old or something. I said, what's wrong? I'm gray.
I'm gray?
He said he was gray, and I said, you're gray? I said, what are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
I guess they had some sort of coloring or painting assignment, and they were like, well, if you mix black and white, you get gray.
Oh,
and so he brought home the gray, and he was upset about that. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I explained to him, that was little, you know, that was a small thing. But he went to okay.
I'm sorry, but it's deep because at a very young age, you're internalizing oppression based on your identity. He had a mixed identity, but isn't it true though that your racial identity gets informed by society, and he was getting a negative message at 4 years old, that it wasn't beautiful and God's plan, you know.
Right.
So, sorry.
No, it's okay. But when he got older, he went to a Christian
Bible camp.
And he had I guess it was a group room situation, wasn't it? And there was one of the kids that was there, I think this kid did not want to room with our son because he was black. And I guess all the other roommates were different races and all, including him. This child, he was not white to my memory. I believe he was Asian, but he didn't want to room with our son. And it just really, it really upset our son. I don't know if you remember some other specifics as to what happened, but I know he didn't want to room with them. And I know that when Will went to go get him, Will talked to the counselor, the people in charge, and explained that it was a Christian camp.
Yeah, because it happened again. Not only did he not want him to be in the room, but when they went and they stopped at a restaurant on the way home, they were separating themselves. So he was calling on the phone a second time, crying because of how he was being treated. And let me tell you, I feel it right now. I mean, when he was getting messed with, it's you know, it's things like a parent, things that you cannot just deal with or, you know, help them. I knew something was coming eventually. I mean, we live in a culture and in a time where, you know, editorialized, we're the most divided time in my lifetime. You know, it's everything, and we're not communicating and not bridging the gap. But the reality is, I didn't have anything I could do except say, you know, I'm sorry this happened, I love you. And I did go to the camp counselor though, because it was a predominantly white Christian camp, and I said, you're living in a place that's getting more and more diverse. You've got to address this. You should be doing trainings with your camp counselors. You should be exposing them to different backgrounds, because you're inviting these kids to the camp. Right. So you got to figure out how to help them all to gel, and you can't shy away from the issues. That's what we do so often. We sweep these issues under the rug. It's sometimes the elephant in the middle of the room, but we can't even talk to each other and just talk about the struggles.
You know, that's interesting, the location of where the pain took place. Anything that is Christian related should be a safe haven. It should be a safe place where you could be who God created you to be and feel the love that God himself share and he shows. And I know that can be confusing to a child to be in the presence of a place where you should feel the presence of God's love and be accepted, you know, by the people of God. And when you're not, then it questions, wow, did God make a mistake with me and his creating of me? You know, then that totally combats Psalm 139. You know, I'm fearfully and I'm wonderfully made. What you're doing when things like that happen, you're saying, well, that may be something wrong with that verse in that chapter in that book, because there is something. When you are separated, child, you're saying that there is a problem with that verse. And in a child's mind, well, there must be a problem with that verse. And you're absolutely correct. There are ways that we have to, conversate, figure out, pray about, ask God, how do we deal? Because you do have people that wrestle. They have history there, and it needs to be dealt with. And I wouldn't say deal with it in an anger sense, because that's not going to help anything. But we have to deal with it on the sin level, because exactly what it is. That's sin.
Yes, it is.
It is sin.
We can do a whole, I think we need to do another episode on just race and Christianity.
I was going to
challenge.
I was like,
Yeah,
let me
because
check myself,
because we deal
Yeah.
with we dealing with
Right.
marriage. So
Oh, yeah, sorry.
but that's
No,
you good.
right.
That was needed.
Yeah,
that was needed.
Yeah.
But what other question, you have anything else pertaining to marriage?
Thank you. What challenges, if any, that you all have faced in your marriage as an interracial couple?
You want to go? Because I went a long time. So.
If you have something, you can jump in.
Okay.
Personally, our cultures are very different, very different. Believe me, the foods you eat, the way the broccoli's cooked, it's just so many things that
Mac
are
and cheese
different.
has the breadcrumbs on the top.
Yeah, we
We do
breadcrumbs.
marshmallows.
Marshmallows on the sweet potatoes. And I'm like,
Sorry,
huh?
that's just how we roll. I mean,
So it's just,
Right.
I kinda like marshmallows.
So, I had never had that. I had never had it, but I liked it. It was good. But so there are very many things that are so different. However, to me, our biggest challenges have had nothing to do with race. It's been
Fascinating.
communication,
Right.
and that's it's communication.
That's good.
Yeah.
That is it. And I don't think that the communication stems from, because I'm black and he's white. I think it's communication because it's so funny, whether I'm talking to my girlfriends, whether I'm talking to anyone else that are, black, two black people married, two white people married. You hear some of the same stuff that women complain about or
Right.
say things about.
Exactly.
And it's like, my husband too, really? Your husband, really? And it's like, it's a man-woman thing mostly is what I'm hearing. That's pretty consistent. And so I think it's definitely more communication than.
yeah.
And when I just said that was good, I didn't mean it was good that you always have a challenge. I was just saying
I'm just saying that's.
it was good
real.
because we focus so much on this external, but
Yep.
we're all human beings.
Right. The human
Yeah.
race.
Yep.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, when we connect, once at the end of the day, I don't even think about race in our.
Yeah, we don't.
Not that I'm saying I think there are some serious societal, institutional, cultural issues,
Sorry.
but we're married, so I'm not going around the house. This is my African American wife, and
Except sometimes we have had our.
we have.
It's a black thing. It's
Yeah,
a
we'll
black
have
thing.
that.
It's a black thing. Really.
And I'll try to
we'll play around
go,
like
try to
this.
be the, I got my.
He'll say, he said things like, what? I am black. Or so, I'm like, okay.
Now that's
well,
because people
Yeah.
may be very comfortable in like African American churches, and ours is a very mixed, healthy church, I think.
Well, that's
So,
good.
and so with that, I play with that because I'm very comfortable now. And I'll say this, I'll throw this in. White folks that have like this inhibition or fear, I struggled with that. I'm going to be honest. I was mugged by African American kids when I was a teenager. I was accused of racism when I was working in higher ed, and that mugging kind of, you couple that with what I saw in the media. I struggle with this stuff, but I got to say something. It's very important. Is that if you deal with anxiety or fear around another race, one race you should not be afraid of getting to know is one of the most loving, nurturing cultures and ethnicities I've ever been around. So the perception that's out there that there should be some kind of fear, it's like the most loving people, to me the most patient with us and overcoming and standing strong despite all of it. She's the strongest woman I know. If we got into her history and what she's been through in her life compared to me, from racial but also life experience, upbringing, and things that I just think it's, powerful and strong, in terms of relating to cross races. And I'm grateful that I had those experiences, and that's another show, but if I hadn't had some of those, I probably wouldn't have opened my heart to the possibilities of interracial dating. I'm actually, at the end of the day, glad those things happened because they opened the door. And tying it all together, the last thing is that we have a lot of challenges sometimes, communication, maybe some cultural differences or whatever. We've worked 20 years on it. But the key that we have, the glue that keeps us together, is we always come back to our Christian faith.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
the glue that holds us together. Like, if she does something, I already know if she did something wrong, eventually the Holy Spirit's going to tap her on the shoulder, she's going to come back and apologize, and vice versa. And so we always have that anchor of support.
I think that's good.
And that's powerful. And let me say this too, Will. I think it's so important that we need European Americans, we need the white guys like you to speak out, to speak your heart, because too often, yes, as African Americans, yes, we speak out on injustice and the challenges that we face. But I think when it comes from, when it comes from someone,
folks.
yeah, it just carries volumes. And I just want to let you know I appreciate you, and I have such a high regard for you beyond your ethnicity. But I see how you love your wife, your African queen, and beyond.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm joking, but yeah, it's you love your wife. I know we all mess up and we get off track, but I know that you are a man who embrace being convicted by God, and you're gonna get it right, and you're raising your children in the admonition of the Lord. At the end of the day, man, we all are the human race. And I tell people often, I'm like, if we just hit the rewind button, we all go back to Noah and that ark, and they were all related. So technically, we all related. Okay, so before I go on a tangent.
Yeah, and then just one quick thing you touched on really quickly, and I promise I'm not going to be long. You said something that is very powerful, and I think that it will break down the walls. Not only is communication is important in any relationship, marriage or friendship, but even getting to know a person is vital. Because when you're silent, you have all types of perspectives and pictures that are in your mind. But it's when you take the time to open your mouth and say hello, how are you? Get to know the person or a person, because that's exactly what they are. We are people created by one God, created by the Master. And we should really take ownership to really love like He loved. And it's important for us not to sit back and just view and make a perception of who you think a person is. Take the time to get to know the one that your Master created.
Amen. That's good stuff. Praise the Lord. And we'll end this. I want to plug the ministry here. Could you tell people about Perito Point, because this is an awesome and healthy church, and I think you should tell the viewers about it.
You don't even know this, Brian, but in the last 2 weeks, God is up to something here. We have seen 9 people come to Christ in the last 2 weeks.
Hallelujah.
God.
And
9
seven of them were in an outreach we're doing down in Sandy Springs. Powerful, just coming forward. And then today we had a young man that we've been meeting with a couple times, and he came up and gave his life to Christ. And
Wow.
we've seen more diversity, so we're now about 40% Caucasian, 60% African American. That's been the vision all along.
Yes.
We want to be a multi-generational, multicultural, multi-ethnic church that feels safe. And so we're pointing people to a growing relationship with Jesus Christ, making disciples, trying to do it in a way that honors God, but also being we don't have it all together. So we are trying to be a safe space, you know,
So
to
how can
come
people find
explore
you?
faith. So we're in a place called Rome, not Rome, Georgia, ROAM. We rent a facility. It is next to LA Fitness, and it is 1155 Mount Vernon Highway, and it's in Dunwoody. And if you want to find out more, it's Perimeter Point with an E on the end .org. It gives you all the information you need.
Right, and you're online every Sunday.
Yes, we do Facebook and Periscope Live.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doris.
Thank you.
Guys.
And you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And thank you for speaking to the nations and the world.
Amen.
And we're gonna have you back. We gotta
Sounds good.
tear down some walls with this racial
Yeah,
stuff.
I'd love to-
and,
love to
we'll
talk
do
about
it.
it.
So we're gonna go to our duet, and
Doris and I are gonna sing Amazing Grace. You ready?
In the key of E.
Y'all be blessed.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another Deep Dish Duet. Tonight we're still hanging out with James and Lauren Sorrell, and we're gonna do one of our old-time songs.
Real old.
Old time, like what, 17 years?
17 years.
Yes. So anyway, it's called Reunion, talking about old times and how once we were sinners, but God changed our lives as we gave it over to Him. Amen. So let's jam. It's been a long time since I've seen you. I just want to know how you do. Seeing you brings memories of crazy times that we had. Funny stories to share. How you made me laugh. Giving out thanks to the God and having time on eating curly fries and all the pictures.
Harry's
Photoshop. I'm glad to see you doing well. I've got one more thing to tell. I'm no longer the same since Christ lives inside.
I'm coming southbound to Tuskegee, place of my birth on the lake where we take it easy. Don't be deceived by the south, no plenty ghettos. Plenty brothers run up on your mouth back when we were youngsters playing ball in the field. Not old enough to chase girls, but simply know we will. Popping up his honey, sucking scram, blow opinion. Got on kind of labor, mama got a bud with me. Old summer first love, gotta kiss and go. As far as brother went back in 1984. JVC bumping, cool train, rocking bells. Trying to learn that new edition step before I bail to the party. No cares in this world. Yo, Tony, I like that girl. Riding bikes in the streets, cold. Gotta buy a flavor grape juice drink. Glad to see you again. Glad to see you. I don't know when. Hey, no, listen. I changed my whole life. I'm now born again. Hey, ooh, I, ooh, yeah. Come on, give me praise in the city. Praise to God, praise to God. Let me not praise you, praise to God. Ooh, I, ooh, yeah. Come on, give me praise in the city. Praise Him on your job, praise Him on your side. 25 saints, give Him praise. Hey, west side, east side, south side. Throw it up, throw it up, throw it up. Hey, east side, west side, south side. Throw 'em up.
Glad to see you again. I haven't seen you since I don't know when. Yeah, I'm no longer in sin. I changed my whole life. I'm now born again.
Let's go, bring it on, James. Here we go.
Yeah, glad to see you again. I haven't seen you since I don't know when.
Yeah.
I'm no longer in sin.
Changed my whole life. I'm now born again.
That song won't be out.
Glad y'all like it. Hopefully.
Somebody need some tacos.